And now it's time for another episode of Translation with Brett A. Craig.
Gaines has been such a successful transphobe.
Transphobe meaning a person who doesn't think males should be in women's sports.
That her name is being attached to bills across the country trying to ban trans athletes.
Meaning banning males from women's sports.
And impede on trans rights.
Trans rights meaning males get to cheat and steal trophies and medals from women and girls.
And the thing that I can't get past.
Yourself.
Besides
yourself.
The transphobia and the hatred.
Hate meaning if you disagree with forking over all of women's rights to mentally ill men.
And the bigotry and just the hatefulness of all of it, right? Is that I can't imagine being such a sore loser that having to share a 5th place trophy.
Can't imagine that because you've never won 5th place in anything, not even ping pong at your barbecue.
With a trans woman.
A man.
Sent me into a years-long spiral. Riley Gaines has admitted that the thing that really bothered her was that when she tied with Leah Thomas, the thing that really upset her was that they gave Leah the trophy, and she got to stand on the podium with the trophy.
He got to stand on the podium with the trophy, and generally when people cheat and then get the honor of holding the trophy instead of the person that played by the rules, that generally makes people pretty upset.
And Riley had to hold the 6th place trophy, and they were going to mail her trophy in the mail. And she just didn't think that was fair.
Exactly.
This has been Translation with Brett A. Craig. And now from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show. Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be That Donald show. We don't have that, so we have That Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, the president told her story, Payton McNabb. New info on family and the economy from Rachel Sheffield and Patrice Onwuka. Dr. Sasa takes us behind the Burmese curtain. Sketch comedy from Not a Parody, Brett A. Craig, and a new musical from Quite On Productions. And Jelly Roll returns to the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, the genius who thought it'd be a giggle to tell Representative Al Green to stand up on Tuesday night. Even wave the cane around. Yep, it's all his fault. Here's the Kevin!
All right, I'm not sure that I agree with that at all, Dave, but I'll take that up with you during the commercial break. Welcome to the weekend, friends. We got a lot to get to. And yes, it was an embarrassing week for the Democrats. I mean, they sunk lower than I thought people thought they could sink. And it wasn't just the absurdity of the night at the State of the Union. You had the kind of crazy ladies that were all wearing the pink blazers. And then they were sitting there, because they're pretending. This is how it goes down. They're hearing the president speak and they're holding these little ping pong paddles that say stuff like Musk steals and stuff like that. And they keep flipping it back and forth. And I'm thinking, do they think they're having any impact on anything? And oh, by the way, President Trump was genius. He starts rolling out these stories that actually impact people's lives. And so you have a bunch of overweight, old, mid-level bureaucrat and congressional people sitting there with their little pink jackets on going, oh, wow, we'll show him. Then you have Dr. Cranky. Al Green gets up, waves his cane around. No microphone on. We can't hear you, dude. I don't know what you're saying. But whatever you're saying is not having any impact, and you're not getting your message out. At least when Joe Wilson did it for the Republicans to Obama, and he said, you lie. At least he said it loud enough that everyone could hear him. But you know what else happened when Joe Wilson did that to President Obama? Because I went back and looked at this. This is actual history. It's important to know. When Joe Wilson interrupted President Obama's State of the Union address, it caused a ruffle. He got censured the next day, and he wrote a letter of apology and delivered it to the president, and delivered an in-person apology to the president, and the president forgave him. A Republican got mad at a Democrat, did something he shouldn't have done, said he was responsible, took ownership of his actions, apologized, and the Democrat president forgave him. Here you have this donkey's backside standing up there going, of course, we can't hear him because there's no microphone. And there's Speaker Johnson. God bless him. He's so patient. He cracks it once. He says, we will maintain order. Please take your seat. Cracks it again. 3, 4, 5. He got like so many chances. And then so he has to be ushered out because he's turning into, a donkey's backside. And that's what he ended up being. Then the next day he comes back. Do you think if Joe Wilson said, "You lie," to President Obama and got censured, do you think that standing up and trying to stop the president's speech midway deserves a censure? I think so. I think it's a little bit worse than saying "you lie," because Joe Wilson only did it once and then he stopped. Al Green kept going. He kept trying to tell you, you have no mandate. What is a mandate made of, Mr. Green? 7 swing states. He swept all of them. You guys were walking around going, Kamala's going to take this home. And he took all of them from you. He won the popular vote by millions of votes. It wasn't close. It wasn't just like a little bit over the edge. He killed them. And he got 312 electoral votes, which is a big landslide. You only need 275. So any way you measure the election, he crushed them. And now this is the real problem, because I don't think that the Democrats who are elected are paying attention to what they're doing. He goes into his speech and he says to our friend Payton McNabb, who's on the show tonight, she's here, we're going to talk to her. She's sitting up in the balcony. She looks beautiful in her black dress. She has her hair all done nice. And he tells her story. The president of the United States tells the story of how a trans athlete, male volleyball player playing in a female sport, spikes a ball and it gives Payton McNabb brain damage. She was injured. She was paralyzed for a period of time. I'm going to ask her about it. She's been making her way back on the health routine. I'm very happy that she's doing better. I'll ask her about that a little bit later in the show. But here you have this heartbreaking story. You can't come together and applaud a girl that's overcoming brain damage and paralysis just to be there? No. All those pink ladies, they sat there with their hands folded. No, we're not going to do nothing. You're not going to make us get up and applaud. We're not. And then you have the moms of the slain victims from the illegal aliens, and you have the little 12-year-old, and he names the forest preserve after her. I mean, I was bawling. I don't bawl at the State of the Union. I don't cry about these things. They don't usually have things that touch people's hearts. But you're naming the forest preserve that she loved to play in. You're naming that for her. They couldn't applaud the moms. They couldn't even just say congratulations to the moms who endured this. And then don't even get me started on Laken Riley. They almost booed when he brought up the fact that the Laken Riley Act had been passed. You had the little kid up in there that had cancer. He'd been given 5 months to live. He's lived 6 years, and they make him a Secret Service agent. And then the one that really got me, he's talking to the young man whose father was killed by illegal aliens, and this young man has a 4.0 GPA, 4.36 GPA. He's an all-star athlete. He's doing everything right. He's taking care of his mama. His dad, law enforcement officer, was killed. He's always wanted to go to West Point. And the president says, you've been accepted to West Point. Your grades, your life, you're going to get ready to join the long gray line at West Point. that was incredible. He stands up, his mom's crying, he hugs her, he's crying, she hugs him, and they sit back down, and before the camera cuts back to the president, the little kid with cancer comes up behind him to give him a hug and a high five. The kid with cancer is congratulating the kid going to West Point. Meanwhile, you have these stubborn, foolish Democrats sitting down there on their hands, on the floor, refusing to just appreciate fellow Americans. You don't have to like those people because they're Republicans, but their stories deserve your support. They do if we are the land of the free and the home of the brave. Well, all that to say, we've got a huge show. Stick around. It's coming right back. That Kevin Show for your weekend. Glad you're here. Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show, all social media. We try to make it as hard as possible to find us, That Kevin Show. I'm very excited to have Rachel Sheffield joining me from the Heritage Foundation. Her specialty in the research that she does is all on the issue of family, and she has her all of her degrees are in this policy arena. So it's fun to talk to an expert, Rachel, who actually knows what you're talking about. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Kevin.
You've just published what I would say is a rather sizable report. You and Delano Squires did this together, but people can see it if they go over to heritage.org. But you looked at family life at the intersection of tradition and modernity, and you've got a lot of info in this report. First, before we get into the substance of what it was about, why were you taking a look at that particular intersection?
Yeah, well, what we're seeing, we've seen a lot of trends and changes in family life in America in the last several decades, which I don't think necessarily comes as a surprise to anyone, but the purpose of the report was really just to dig into the numbers and to see what's going on with marriage rates, divorce rates, childbearing, unwed births, and how does this kind of break down along different, along lines of education and what does that mean? What will that mean for the well-being of our country going forward? I think we're really, as a nation, need to reflect on these issues, the importance and understand the importance of the family. That if we continue going down the path that we're going today, which is a path of continued breakdown and disconnection, that's going to have major implications for our future generations. And so the purpose of this report is really just to provide an overview, a sketch of the American family today, and to kind of call us call out the importance of the need to really strengthen the family.
I know there's a lot of, particularly in urban centers and where you have lots of young professionals and so forth, there's a lot of resistance to family formation. It's not new to Generation Z or whatever. It's been going on for a few generations, probably since the baby boomers and to present day. But you've seen an even more kind of verbose kind of boasting of, I don't know that I want kids. I don't want to form a family. Why should I have to do this? And it's kind of like exercising a right, so to speak, to say I'm going to be unattached and have no real purpose in family formation. And my question is, I've heard many times that the family unit should be the focal point of healthy societies, because it is in the family unit, the two parents parenting the children, making sure that family unit survives, thrives, reproduces itself, and gives way to the next generation. That is really kind of the building block for any type of society to thrive. Based on the trends that you've seen and that you've documented in this study, how much damage has the resistance and just kind of I don't know, the kind of, I don't want to be told that this is what I have to do. What kind of long-term damage does that do to a nation like America? And how quickly does it do it? In a single generation, in a couple of generations? Will my grandchildren be totally uninterested in marriage and family at the rate they're going? I mean, what are we looking at in terms of long term?
Yeah, well, you're definitely correct that we've seen these major changes, and yeah, as far as the implications go, I think really what we're looking at is greater disconnection. There is, if you look kind of starting in the 60s and 70s, you really see a major decline in marriage rates, and the birth rate particularly in the last 15 years has really dropped. We are at our lowest birth rate that we've ever seen in the United States. And so, yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean for future generations? Well, I think disconnection is the big story here. Now, when the research shows that having a healthy marriage is one of the greatest factors related to adult happiness. And it's also connected with a lot of other positive outcomes for both adults and for children. Stability is crucial for the well-being of children. And so the more that we go down this road, then we're going to have less happiness and yet less human thriving. And we hear a lot about a loneliness epidemic in the United States today, right? And a greater sense of purposelessness. And what is that stemming from? And I would argue that the major driving factor behind that is the breakdown of the family and the failure of the formation of the family with marriage at the core. Well,
it seems so like common sense from the science kind of side of it, that you need people to form families, to have kids, to create society. And yet, even just talking about it in as kind of a clinical way as what I just did, like, people take umbrage to it, and they take umbrage to it based on the idea that you're trying to put forward a religious viewpoint or a moral viewpoint on people that want to choose to live by a different code of morality. And we've seen this creep into all sorts of areas that it didn't used to creep into. When you have the Biden administration blackmailing public schools, saying you're going to push trans identity in the schools, you are thereby, from a scientific standpoint, deconstructing future families by saying you're going to go down this path and we're going to make sure that you do it. It's not as much of a gun to the head as the China's one-child policy was, but it kind of ends up in the same place, does it not?
Yeah, when we have these conversations, and it's not even just, we right now in the nation, we're dealing with this question of transgenderism, even, what is a male, what is a female, right? And that conversation has stemmed from just past questions about even what is our relationship to one another as men and women, what is our purpose, and this loss of the idea that that being mothers and fathers is a very significant part of being
human,
of being human, and of continuing our to continue to perpetuate. Of course, I mean, it's not the only thing, but that is a core piece of who we are. And so, I think that the further we get away, the more individualized that we become, the less happiness is there. And so I think that one of the positive points on this is that these things are the truth, the reality that we are that we thrive in families is what I am hopeful about, that will prevail in this. If you look at data, still most Americans who are unmarried do want to get married. There's been some decline there, but most do, and so that's positive. I think the problem is, though, that the infrastructures to enforce and to strengthen and to help people get there have really dwindled, particularly in some communities. So
let's talk about that. We're going to take a quick break and come back. We're speaking with Rachel Sheffield of the Heritage Foundation. Her primary area of study and focus in her fellowship there is on family and the impact that policy has on that. fascinating big study that she's just co-released with another author. It's at heritage.org, and you can go see that for yourself.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Times Square, Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show. And I don't know if you've noticed, but when you have someone like Elon Musk kind of running around the White House, and he's got kids on every arm, and you hear and you see kind of the difference in the political perspectives of the two sides. I've always noticed this, but my center-right and right-leaning friends tend to have bigger families, and my center-left and left-leaning friends tend to not have families nearly as much, don't have nearly as many kids, kind of choose, and oftentimes not even to commit themselves to a permanent relationship of any sort, just saying, I just want to kind of hang out and be my own thing. Is there a political outcome that matters on this? We're talking with Rachel Sheffield of the Heritage Foundation, who has done a big study and just produced it on the kind of intersection of tradition and modernity and the impact on the family. And Rachel, I started noticing that trend years ago. My Republican and right-leaning friends, even if they're not political, they were always the one that had, 5, 6, 7 kids. If I knew a family that had that many kids, they were always going to be on the political, social, religious, kind of the conservative right side of things in terms of how they viewed the world. And on the other hand, here in New York, my left of center friends, half of them say, I don't think I ever want kids. Like, it's not. What does making a family have to do with me making as much money as I can and being as happy as I want to be, and I just want to travel and do the other stuff? There really is a worldview that's kind of attached to this to these outcomes, and it really does center on kind of how important they see family being.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of different pieces of that puzzle to kind of tease out there. But yes, I think one of the biggest pieces is the connection between religion and childbearing. That's, the more religious you are, the more children that you tend to have. And so that's definitely, that drives a lot of behavior, just kind of the perspective and on that. One thing that is interesting, though, and kind of a flip to that side, is that even even people who are liberal, they tend to among the college educated, they tend to get married still before having children, right? So they order it, they get married, they have children. They know that link there is important. However, in the United States, and I think particularly on the left, but even so on the right, that there's kind of this unwillingness to talk about the fact that getting married is important for the well-being and the stability of the family. So to some degree, I would say we need more people who are on the left and who do understand that it's important to get married before having children to talk about that. And it's
hard to point to people to say this is the right thing to do, though, when all of your professional athletes, Hollywood actresses and actors, big time celebrities, now social media influencers and others kind of don't do it that way. They say, well, I'm with someone. Oh, oops, we got pregnant. I guess we'll get married. And it really is kind of the absence of a consistent worldview that kind of puts them in that situation. But to your point, the lack of a marriage, it's not just the emotional safety net that it's providing, but it's the financial, it's the physical security of a father being in a household with the children that are his. There's all kinds of other things that kind of play into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Marriage is tied, being raised in a married parent family is tied to better education outcomes. Children are far less likely to be poor if they're raised by their married parents, and less likely to experience delinquency, and on and on. But as you say, the culture really is not it doesn't. We don't have those social infrastructures to kind of.
It doesn't encourage it.
We do the
real quickly. Just 1 minute left. I want to get to this. Is there any hope in what you've discovered in this study? Are there any positive trends? Is there anything moving in the direction that we want it to be in? And if not, are there solutions from what you've looked at that we could possibly implement?
So I would say, one, I always like to be hopeful. I do think that we have seen some decline in divorce, probably partly because there's been a decline in marriage, but we've also seen some leveling off of the unwed birth rate. So those are some positive trends. The other thing, though, that I mentioned before is that I still think that many Americans still do want to get married, and even if they don't necessarily know how to do that or how to get there. And so I would say that what we need to have more to start at home. Parents can talk about the importance of marriage with their children.
Hey, Rachel, keep up the great work and come back and talk to us again sometime in the future. We'd love it.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square. Lots more straight ahead on That Kevin Show.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. It is That Kevin Show, and so often I have the chance to talk to really smart people far smarter than me about some of the biggest issues of the day, and I am so thankful to get to talk to Patrice Onwuka on a regular basis from the Independent Women's Forum. She rejoins us, talking all things economic policy right now. Patrice, welcome back. Will the Trump tax cuts get extended? That's going to be a big question in this session, but the House was able to do it on a very small margin. Speaker Johnson whipped the majority, and he got the budget passed. What does this mean for you and me?
Well, good to see you again. This is hugely important. If you got a paycheck, you probably got a tax cut in 2017, and that will go away starting January 1st of next year if Congress does not extend and make permanent, frankly, those tax cuts from 2017. That's going to hit virtually every household. Your child tax credit is going to be cut in half. Your personal exemptions that simplified your taxes, you're going to see most of those go away. Small businesses, their tax rates are going to rise up to 43% at the most, which is pretty high. So imagine the economic impact that's going to have on families, on small businesses that are already struggling with Joe Biden's price increase of 20%. It's going to be devastating. So, the House Republicans under Speaker Johnson's leadership, they passed kind of the budget, which lays out the framework for what the tax cuts are going to look like, how much it's going to be spent, kind of the spending around it. And now the Senate needs to figure out what it's going to do. And then the individual committees will really put the fine details together in the bill. And then there will be a full vote on the final package once that comes up, probably sometime this spring.
Do you think that happens through reconciliation, or do you think we actually get a bill that both houses agree on?
Reconciliation. And so if you remember, the Senate, they've passed a reconciliation bill already, but it had nothing to do with taxes. They actually left taxes out, saying that we'll get another bite at this apple down the line. Good luck with that, because if you wind the clock back to 2017, if you remember, Republicans spent most of the year trying to repeal Obamacare, and that infamous thumbs down by John McCain ended months of work on that. And so the tax cuts almost didn't happen. It was a midnight situation, another budget reconciliation bill, and then we got the tax cuts. And so we don't want to see that happen. I think that's why President Trump said he wants a big, beautiful bill.
Well, it's the first part of that is getting the House to pass the budget this last week. There's lots of complaints, Patrice, on social media. I'm sure you've seen this, but you've got your Elizabeth Warrens and your Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes and other people that are running around going, hey, the president promised he was going to lower the prices on how people live, and he hasn't done it yet. 30 something days into his new administration. How much of the work that DOGE is doing, that this budget will lay out, that the extension of the tax cuts, how much is all of that necessary to be in place for permanent cost price reductions for the American people? And what else can or should be being done to maybe move that a little bit quicker?
Yeah, so prices are not going to go magically down overnight. They took them 4 years to go pretty high.
Well, I was about to say, you weren't saying anything about it while you guys were raising them for the last 4 years. So how come he only gets 30 days to just erase everything you did?
Exactly. I mean, I think there's understanding that it's going to take some time, and but what do you do with that time is important. So permitting reform, I know it sounds wonky, but really it is about increasing the amount of domestic energy production we have in this country, as well as being able to export more oil on the global markets. So once that happens, and then in addition, you see the tax cuts, cutting spending, which really is also a driver of inflation, and the federal spending, the fact that we finance our federal spending through the Federal Reserve printing money. When we cut back on spending, that's going to have a long-term impact as well on the economy. And so it's going to take time, but as production increases, as people are working, as businesses have certainty, and that's a big one, Kevin. Mm-hmm. Small businesses and large corporations, they have not known what was going to happen with tax cuts. And so once that certainty is off the table, once they know that tax cuts are done and good, then they can start to plan out and reinvest in their businesses. That means increased paychecks. That means new bonuses. We saw that in 2017, 2018. And so all of those, I think, will start to feed into prices that people are paying at the pump and at the grocery store.
I think this is your answer is affirming, because it's basically what I've been telling people, but I think it's going to be at least 6 to 8 months until the energy impact is felt. And when that starts to really drive, you're going to have a bunch of dominoes kind of fall at once, because you're going to have eliminated a lot of the reckless spending of Washington. DOGE is going to work. It's going to be successful. Yes. In fact, I think what you're going to start seeing, and I'm seeing some evidence of it here in the tri-state area, is you're going to start having states implementing statewide DOGE programs saying, hey, what kind of funny business are we doing with our money? And if you get the right people elected and you clean up government and you get rid of all of the waste and abuse that's in the system, that allows even for some of the necessary programs to be funded more strongly, and then eliminating a lot of programs that are not serving anyone well. I don't know what we get out of Gay Elmo Sesame Street in Iraq. I don't understand what that's about. How does that help my kids learn better in their schools? Those are the kinds of questions that we need to be measuring these things by. So at the end of the day, that spending's eventually going to take some of the pressure off of even the public services, and then you have the energy kind of boom move into full production, full exportation, and I think that we're going to be a net export king when it comes to what the global economy looks like. No one can keep up with us, and we've basically been holding back the resources for the last 4 years. The mullahs aren't going to be able to do it in Iran. Much of the Arab states are not going to be able to match us. And Russia is running out of opportunity to impact the global energy picture in much of a significant way. And we have more supplies than anybody. So once we just tap into that, I think it is good times for a lot of people.
Well, and you have to recognize, I mean, a lot of people don't realize just how important oil is in our country. It's not just what you put in your car or heat your home with. The fibers in a lot of our clothes are made from oil. So many products that we use, consumer products, are made with oil. And obviously the transportation cost of getting goods from the ports to your grocery store shelf, all is dependent on oil prices.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
We at That Kevin Show are conducting a survey. We'd like to know if you, the viewer, have any interest in seeing your member of Congress bounce up and down like a character from a Mario video game. We didn't think so. Choose your character. And from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show. somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as votes for Damas.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, Dr. Sasa takes us behind the Burmese curtain. And one of the true stars of the president's speech to Congress this past Tuesday, Payton McNabb. An original musical from Quite On Productions, sketch comedy from Not a Parody, and a sneak peek at The Last Supper. And now, still singing, We Will Overcome, from Al Green's congressional seat in the well of the House, here's Dad Kevin!
Man, Dave, I don't know what really was wrong with you, but you went kind of overboard on the Al Green stuff
wrong with me
this week. And you know what? It's really bad on my part because I get him mixed up with the gospel singer. Remember that Al Green? Everything's gonna be all right. Oh, he was the one that did that, right?
Yeah, he did.
No.
He did.
You know what else I found out this week? I can't do enough push-ups. Did you see this story? You know how many of men my age are supposed to be able to do? 422. Yeah, it sounded off to me, too. Anyway, hey, let's get over to the news. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. If anyone needed proof that we have entered a new era with the return of Donald Trump to the White House, look no further than the fact checkers at CNN. In their own giddy hopes of trying to catch Trump in a lie, the network immediately last Tuesday threw a red flag at Trump's pronouncement of taxpayer dollars being used for surgeries to transition mice. After the pronouncement, the Department of Government Efficiency produced the documents that itemized Trump's assertion. Tough call on who you'd rather be in that moment. The poor little Mickey, who was surgically changed into a Minnie, or the fact checker who got neutered over the incorrect fact checking. They only had one job. The Trump administration is revoking visas from students that are linked to terrorist protests, pro-terror rallies occurring at several American universities in recent days. Minnesota Congresswoman Representative Ilhan Omar's own daughter, being the mastermind of the protests at Bernard College in New York, might end up endangering the status of her entire family. Herself, her brother, her mom, her mom's brother, who is also her mom's husband. Hey, terrorist families, they do things differently. They like to keep it all in the family. Experts are warning Trump that his new Iron Dome defense plan for the U.S. might have unintended consequences in the near future. Mainly that it will make running cons with pro-terror states a lot more impossible, especially for families with names like Biden, Obama, or Omar. Female congressional members from the Democratic Party unleashed a video the following morning of the president's speech this last week, asking Americans to, quote, choose their fighter. The shots of said women appear in the video, bouncing up and down like video game characters in pause mode. The supposed fundraising tool brought in $0, but not for lack of exposure. The video went uber viral with more than 1 million voices ratioing it, saying how silly the representatives looked. Almost as silly as they did the night before, all decked out in pink and incapable of supporting maternal crime victims, women's rights, or even little kids who kicked cancer. A couple of them did beat it back, however, to their hometown colleges just in time to participate in more pro-terrorist rallies. Democrat women, they know their priorities. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Who's back? Did you miss me? 4 years out, did you feel the change? Or did things just get kinda strange? They thought they'd seen the last of me, but folks, America said, let's see! Back in the White House, whoa! The people spoke, the game ain't done. Back in the White House, whoa! They tried to stop me, but I still won. They called me a threat, they said I was through. Tried to jail me in Georgia, New York, DC too. But every indictment, it boosted my name. 4 years of Biden, they all felt the pain. I went on Joe Rogan, dropped truth like bombs. Talked about Fauci, big tech in the swamp. Kamala just laughed, said I was deranged. But they should have worried about Joe on the stage. Yeah, back in the White House, oh, they tried to bury, but I rose again. Yeah, back in the White House, took back the country, now we fix the mess. Vance is my sidekick, Tulsi fought hard. Elon free Twitter, Kennedy's a star. Hanan's at the border, cash brings the heat. And my rallies, massive, crowds filled the streets. Pete's at defense, ready for the fight. Rogan dropped the mic, changed the game that night. Susie's the boss, leading the charge. And Linda, education's getting torn apart. Christie's got Homeland securing the land. America's back, do you understand? Debate's a joke, Joe couldn't keep up. Gave him a mic and he still screwed up. Kamala just cackled, avoided the scene. They said, Mr. Trump, you're back in the ring. Whoa, CNN cried, The View lost their minds. MSNBC, a meltdown divine. They called it the end of democracy's day. But folks, I'm just here to make America great. Back in the White House, oh, Trump Force One just touched down. Back in the White House, oh, a new chapter, so gather round. We're drilling again, the borders are tight. China's paying up, inflation's in flight. No more woke nonsense, bring back the pride. The American dream is still alive.
Take this and eat it. This is my body given for you. Whoever eats my flesh, drinks my blood, remain in me and I in them. Do this in remembrance of me. I was a fisherman once, content to follow the rhythm of the tides. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord. You know that I love you.
These men are friends of Jesus of Nazareth.
The time has come for us to prepare the Passover dinner.
Jesus of Nazareth, where is he?
Dear Caiaphas, if I knew I would be with him.
People flocked to him. Why, Lord, did you not give such gifts to me?
Judas Iscariot. His inner struggles trouble me. You have the chance to change everything.
I know where you can find him.
You have done well, traitor.
Should Caiaphas or the Romans appear, he entrusts us to be vigilant. You do not realize now what I'm doing.
He has nothing, yet he has everything.
Later, you will understand. I was a fisherman once, but he made me a fisher of men.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to that Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough. It's called That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show on all social media if you want to be in touch. And we certainly appreciate you being involved, especially when it comes to my next topic. I don't shy away from this, and I know that I'm probably the only talk show host in America, television or radio, that takes significant time on my platform to discuss the religious persecution, specifically of Christians around the world. I have a tremendous partner in this work, Christian Solidarity International, and you are most familiar with what we do with them by way of liberating slaves. But there are other things that they do that I'm finding are equally important and just as impactful, and that's why we have regular visits, not just with the CSI staff, but also with some of their partners, which is who we are about to introduce to you right now. His name is Dr. Sasa, and they don't have other names in Myanmar, where he's from, but we are glad to have him with us. Dr. Sasa, it's good to see you, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much indeed, Kevin, for having me today. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate it. You are one of the partners that CSI works with on the ground. And what do you primarily do? What are you facilitating in your work with CSI?
CSI and us, they are a part of this humanitarian help to, and also be the voice for the voiceless when it comes to Christians' religious persecutions, which is we are under attack by the military of Burma armed forces. It's not just the first time we have been the targets. If you look at the Burma, 86% are known as Buddhism. But this is the military that we are facing. They are not even practicing Buddhism, but they use Buddhism as a weapons to persecute the Christians. It's
an excuse to do it.
Exactly, and it's about only we are just 6% of the country population, but we'll be heavily targeted in the last 4 years. More than 300 plus churches or places of worships and have been destroyed, and overall like hospitals, schools, and homes, mainly these minority homes, and more than 100,000 homes and churches and schools and hospitals have been destroyed by these military junta.
More than 100,000?
More than 100,000 homes, churches, worships, and schools have been destroyed, completely bombed by, supported by China and Russians. And those are the weapons that were exchanged with our rare earth. We are very rich of rare earths in Burma, and then those rare earths are being extracted by this country, and then exchange they give them weapon. And those weapons are Chinese weapons or Russian weapons, and then kills a lot of our Christian brothers and sisters, and destroyed our churches and our schools and our homes. And this is an example in my Chin State, where I came from. The town called Tatlang town is a home for 10,000 people. Is completely wiped out for the last 3 years, and so that's what we are facing now.
That is really disheartening. And I think a lot of people are having a similar reaction to that I am right now, because when we hear about Buddhism in the United States, all we hear is peace and, love and quiet and calm and concentration and all these other things. I didn't know there was a violence element to it. And it sounds very similar to the way Islam operates in parts of the world and so forth. The Christians that are there, how are they surviving since these 100,000 buildings, structures, homes, churches, schools have been bombed? How are they surviving?
It's not only, Gavin, that more than 100,000 homes and schools and churches and hospitals are being destroyed. It's also more than 6,000 our brothers and sisters has been killed by the bombardment and the campaign against them with battlefield weapons that they exchange with the natural resources of Burma. And what the military has been doing is they steal the wealth of the country. As I said earlier, 50% of rare earth globally reserved is in Burma. And they extract the rare earth and gave to China. And in return, they gave them the weapon. And then the weapon come and kill our people. And so we are not talking about only the 100,000 plus churches, homes and churches, schools and hospitals be destroyed. We are talking about more than 6,000 brothers and sisters has been killed.
That sounds like, in legal terms, that sounds like something called genocide.
It is something that we, you already know that minority, not only Christian, but Muslim, Rohingya, this military, the same military that have came and killed so many of our brothers and sisters, have killed and targeted genocidal attack against minority Muslim Rohingya. And then the U.S. government have determined that as genocide. So really it is what genocidal attack against minority. And then so these are the military regime that have used the peaceful religious and loving religious Buddhism as a peace and love, but they are using this opposite and using as a tool for them to use as a weapon to persecute the minority. And if you are Christian and Chin, you just have no future in Burma. Particularly, there is a red line that you cannot cross. Example, to be military general in Burma, you cannot be Chin, you cannot be Christian. There will be no ever one Christian who is military general in Burma. It's there's a red line that you cannot cross. And that's how we have lived under oppression, not just only 1 year or 2 years or 4 years. We have been living there for the last 70 years since we get independent from Britain. And that's have been our life. And there's just no future under this military brutality and cruelty that target our faith, our belief, and there's no freedom to believe. There's no freedom to worship. Even many of those churches have no registration, has no protections of legal status because they are just built and they are not recognized as a church. And that is just 12 days ago. There's also the killing of, priests and the father. And it's all instigated by this military regime in one way or another way.
Friends, if you want to know more about what CSI is doing in the Myanmar-Burma conflict, you can go to csi-usa.org and find more information there. Dr. Sasa is our guest, and he's seeing it firsthand. Dr. Sasa, let me ask you, I know that you're in the States for a short while, and you're attending conferences and talking to people and you're trying to raise awareness. I want to ask more about that when we come back from the break. But real quickly before the break, just a short answer. What is the world's general interest? Has anybody come to your aid in terms of global governments? Have there been any countries that have reached out and said, we want to help the Christians in Myanmar?
Not as far as now, and it's like we are located between China and India, and we're at the crossroad between Southeast Asia and the South, and then China, India, and then Burma is strategically positioned there at the crossroad between those. If you think about our neighbor, half of the world population are our neighbor, and we are suffering, and the pain and the suffering and the death and destruction that have been endured by our Christian brother and sister in Burma are unspeakable.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. I'm very honored to have Dr. Sasa joining us, and they only go by one name in that part of the world, so it's just Dr. Sasa. People think I'm being rude, Dr. Sasa, by not introducing your full name, so I want to make sure they know I'm being as full as I can, but given the cultural understanding, that's what we do, Dr. Sasa. You were saying in the last segment, and I want to clear this up in case somebody had a hard time hearing, that Burma, Myanmar, whatever it's called, it's rich in rare earth minerals, and specifically in the one called rhyolite. And they've been basically mining that and giving it to China in exchange. China's been giving the Burma government weapons, and then the Burma government, who claims to be Buddhist, is using the excuse of you and other Christians not being Buddhist to then persecute the Christian population of Burma. Real quickly, you're in the States and you're on a little bit of a tour. You were with the International Federation of Persecution meeting that went down in Washington, D.C. last week, and even the vice president came and gave a short speech, which is encouraging to see, because I don't think the government's done that for about the last 4 years. So it's nice to have the White House paying attention again. But when you're talking about the day-to-day persecution there at home, obviously this is something that's going to be difficult to endure if no one else comes to the rescue. So what are you hoping that American Christians, American governmental leaders, and even other leaders around the world might do to help the situation? Do we need to call our lawmakers? Do we need to have groups that travel there? What is the most beneficial thing that you can sense that we need to do?
Firstly, I think the prayer is so important. I think that there's power in the prayer, and we really need American churches here in the United States to pray for Burma. We need that. And number two is really practical actions. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio have made clear that whatever they do, that has to make America safer, that has to make America stronger, that has to make America more prosperous. And I think that's three core strategy policy of the United States of America under President Trump is complementary with our strategy in Burma. That means that Burma has to become a federal democratic country. That means that we will become a reliable partner for U.S. And I think that is where we really, really need to focus, and then also make sure that all those natural resources that I'm talking about, the rare earth, it has to be for our schools, our church, and our monasteries, and our hospitals, and our road. It cannot be again for exchange of weapon from China, and then the same weapon that it was exchanged with our wealth is used against its own people. It's totally a sinful act, not just a crime against humanity. It is the most sinful act that they will be using our natural resources to kill our own people and destroy churches and schools and hospitals. So I have never seen, Kevin, in my life that this is the most evil brutality in humanity that we are facing in Burma. So we really need in the U.S., particularly, there is called Burma Act of 2023. Congress has made that act, that law that allow this strategy to be implemented. So I think supporting Burma will make America safer. Supporting Burma will make America stronger. Supporting Burma will make America more prosperous. How? As the natural resources are rich, Burma was known as the rice bowl of Asia, and 50 years ago. Now we are the poorest country. Why? Because of this evil regime. So what I'm saying is we will need to create a kind of access of American businesses into the rare earth as well. So those things are the things that we really need to work together.
And do you sense that the Burmese people, if there was help from outside, that they would come together and say, yeah, we do want a federal democracy?
That is where we are giving our life for, Kevin. You know, our people have given a lot of our young men and women And many of them have given, their life, including myself. Some of my friends were being executed by Burma army. That means that, we are not only just wishing it, we are laying down our life for the cause of federal democracy and the freedoms. That we became a country that has a partnership with the free world, particularly like U.S., because that is where we are ready to even give our life for our principles, our value, our belief matters.
But thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Thank you so much.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square. Stay here.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show. Well, I've teased it all show long, and here she is. She was in the balcony the night that President Trump addressed the nation this week, but she joins us once again. Payton McNabb, it's always great to see you, lady, but congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
It's your story, and there's been, as you know, because you've been on the show so many times, I've told a lot of the women's stories that have been impacted by the boys and girls sports. But I was so pleased, and I know Riley was there, and I know that Paula and a whole bunch of them have stories, but I'm glad that the president picked yours to tell the night of the State of the Union. It seems to me to be the most glaring example of how someone can get hurt and actually lose a lot of opportunity and a lot of life because of the danger of that. What was your feeling in being invited? How did it all pan out for you?
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible opportunity. I was so incredibly honored, and I still am just overwhelmed with emotions because I'm just so thankful that we have a president that is willing to take on this very real issue and see it for what it is and give it a voice. I mean, he shared my story to the nation, and it really just shows that he genuinely does care, and he stands with women. Yeah.
What was very ironic as well was that you had all of the pink outfitted ladies that were down on the lower level trying to make some sort of statement about how women don't like Trump or Trump doesn't like women or something along those lines. And about, well, most of them voted against the very thing that would protect women the day before. Like just the day before, a bunch of those women voted against women. What was your reaction to, and I know it's only on a procedural vote and the thing ended up passing and now it's going to be the law, but it was still such a, I don't know, slap in the face to see those people acting the way they did. And then they didn't even acknowledge you when your story was told. And I know people that were crying when he told your story.
Yeah, I know the irony. That's the first thought that I had, because the Democrats continue to show how out of touch they really are. I mean, like you said, the day before, 0 Democrats voted for the protection of women and girls, and then they all show up and try to parade themselves around like some kind of champion for women, but the pink suits can't hide the reality that they obviously do not care, because they have shown that in their actions, and they continue to do so. Yeah, and then them not even acknowledging me when I'm getting recognized just shows once again that they genuinely don't care. So I don't understand why they try to make themselves into these, fighters for women, and that Trump hates women so much. He doesn't. He knows what a woman is, and they don't. And they continue to show that.
Okay, if we're just going to get down to brass tacks, let's put it this way. The Democrats always talk about how they're the party of tolerance and they're the party of love and acceptance and of care and of compassion, but they didn't care about women who got injured in sports because men were playing in their sport. They didn't care about African American children who fight cancer. They didn't care about young men who have lost their parents but still want to serve the country and get admitted into West Point. They didn't care about the victims of the immigration stories, the Venezuelan gang members that were raping and killing 12-year-old girls in Galveston, and the monster that raped and killed Lake and Raleigh. They want to care. They say they care. They don't care about anybody that in the least bit makes their opponent look good. And that, I'm sorry, that's just un-American. There have been things that every president that has been president in my lifetime has done that I've agreed with, and some that I've disagreed with, and some I've disagreed with more, and some I've agreed with more. But overall, I'm not going to say, well, just because you're my opponent, you didn't do the good thing if they did the good thing. And here the president is doing the good thing on almost every front. And you know why they are not like that. It's not going to make them look good. And so they're going to be, less popular when the next election comes around. I want to shift gears a little bit, Payton. You've shared your story with us a few times, and I know that my viewers and listeners would love to know what's the latest with you. How are you progressing? How can people pray for you if they are still inclined to do that? What's the latest with you? Just you.
Well, it's been roughly, a little over 2 years, and thankfully I have healed a lot, but my body and mind are still recovering. I can take all the prayers that people are willing to pray for me. So, I think God has healed me, or I know that he has healed me so much this far, and hopefully I continue to get better. But of course, there still are things that I'm dealing with today, and it's just completely frustrating because this should not be the case.
Is are the struggles that you're fighting with now, are they primarily physical? Is it neural processing with the brain? What do the doctors tell you in terms of your prognosis?
Yeah, well, like in the beginning, it was the worst for me, obviously, but a brain injury, it has affected my whole body. There's other health issues that have come up because of that. It's really just unaligned. Everything.
Did it impact organ function and things because the brain is it's the computer for the body, so it tells everything what to do.
Yeah, I'm just having, it's not really my organs or anything, but it's just there's just a lot of health issues. I continue to have to go to the doctor and go to the chiropractor because, I had permanent whiplash at first. There was a point where I had to go to the chiropractor weekly just so they could get me adjusted back and get my body aligned. I still have to do that to this day, like I said, almost a little over 2 years later. So there's a lot that goes into it. Like you said, the brain is the computer for your body, and the fact that is what got injured has really just, that's why it's been this bad.
Well, it should have never been that way, and the president made an absolute promise to do something about it. And I know that you were at the executive order signing just a week or so previous, and we did speak to some other people that were there, but I was glad to see that you were able to attend that as well. But to be honored the way you were this week, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the Independent Women's Forum. I'm proud of the fight that all of us that were involved in never let up one inch, because I think if we had, it could have easily gotten steamrolled the other direction. And I don't care what the women on The View say. This is the administration that's going to go down in history as protecting women more so than any other.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.